Good morning to everyone. Today we are going to start this module 4. So welcome to this first lecture. Now the topics to be covered today are the design of Hadoop distributed file system and HDFS concepts like blocks, name nodes and data nodes, HDFS federation, HDFS high availability and failover and fencing. Okay, we have seen in the last class that there are some new features added under Hadoop 2.x release, right? Like HDFS federation, HDFS high availability, and YARN. In those concepts, we are going to discuss about this HDFS federation and HDFS high availability. Okay, let me give you introduction before going into in-depth discussion on this HDFS. When a data set is too large so that it can't occupy a single disk space, in that case, it has to be divided and has to be spanned across many physical disks, right? So file systems that manage the storage across a network of machines are called as distributed file systems. So when the data sets are very large, you can't manage to store it on a single physical disk. So you have to span it across multiple machines, right? In that case, you have to resort to this storage architecture, which is called as distributed file system. But when we start working with this distributed file system, because it is network based, we come across various complications that exist with network programming. So one of the biggest challenges is making the file system tolerate node failure without suffering data loss. Because you are trying to use multiple physical machines, you also start coming across some failures of those physical machines, right? As you increase the number of physical machines you work with, even the failure chances also increase. In such cases, you have to see that the failures doesn't interrupt the processing, and the client should get an experience that the process is not being interrupted because of node failures or data losses. So the biggest challenge in this distributed file system is to make file system tolerate node failure without suffering any data loss. Now let us see what is the design of this HDFS. How do we actually define this in a formal statement? HDFS is a file system designed for storing very large files with streaming data access patterns running on clusters of commodity hardware. Right? These are the three important terms that decide the architecture of HDFS, that decide the features provided by HDFS. So what are these? Very large files. It is used for storing very large files. Very large files in the sense it takes up to megabytes, gigabytes, and even terabytes of data. Terabytes of and even petabytes of data can be stored on this HDFS design. And streaming data access. Streaming data access in the sense you don't have any point queries like we do in relational database management systems. We don't work with point queries or ad hoc queries. You have to provide streaming data access to the client in this HDFS architecture. Streaming data access signifies that you store the data set by reading from the source once, but you try to read it many times. You try to write the data also many times. Means you are trying to provide streaming data access, continuous data access to the client. Here the time that is taken to read the data is insignificant when we compare it to writing the data many times onto the clusters under HDFS. And commodity hardware. The third term we need to understand about is commodity hardware. What is this commodity hardware? It tells us that the hardware is highly available from different vendors, easily available from different vendors, and scaling up the architecture is not a problem. You can easily scale up the architecture whenever the demand arises or whenever the volume of data increases. You can immediately start deploying another data node onto the cluster and start analyzing that data. You don't come across any bottlenecks of insufficient processing power. You can immediately start scaling up as the demand arises. But where this HDFS is not a good fit, there are some instances where this HDFS can't be used, such as low latency data access. Low latency data access in the sense you don't have scenarios like you don't have more time to access the data. In some cases, actually this HDFS provides high throughput but not latency. Latency is the time taken from the input to giving back the output, right? This when that time taken has to be very less, in such cases HDFS is not a good fit. Why? Because HDFS provides high throughput, means it provides larger processing per unit of time. Large number of instructions are executed per unit of time, but it doesn't provide low latency. So when low latency is required, this HDFS is not a good fit for such scenarios. And even when there are lots of small files. Why? Because you have to store the metadata of all the files in the namespace under a name node, which will have the details of where the files are actually stored on the data nodes. Now, if this metadata is to be stored in more quantity, means if there are more number of small files, then each of these file descriptions have to be stored with the namespace, which actually increases the name node utilization. In such cases, also this HDFS can be used. But, so what is the alternative for this is you can use less number of large files than large number of small files. And another scenario where this HDFS can be used is where you want multiple writers to write the data to the disks and arbitrary file modifications. Means when you want to write the data through multiple writers to the disk, physical disk, or if you want to arbitrarily make large number of modifications to the data set. In that case, HDFS is not a good fit. Why? Because HDFS normally uses only single writer to write the data to the physical disk, and arbitrary file modifications are not available because you can't write the data at a random offset in the data set, or in a physical disk you can't write the data at a random location, at a random offset. Always the data is added at the end of the file in this HDFS. That is why when you want to work with multiple writers and you want to perform arbitrary file modifications, in that case HDFS is not a good fit. Now let us understand about the concepts of HDFS. The first topic we are going to see under this is blocks. Block is the atomic unit, is the smallest unit which is used to transfer or store the data in HDFS. A disk has a block size which is the minimum amount of data that it can read or write. So in order to transfer the data between the data nodes, or in order to write the data or read the data from the physical disks, HDFS use a unit called as block. So this is the smallest data block size that is used to transfer, read or write the data. File systems for a single disk build on this by dealing with data in blocks. So if you want to store file systems for a single disk, still it is stored in terms of blocks. File system blocks are typically a few kilobytes in size, whereas disk blocks are normally 512 bytes. So the default size for disk blocks is 512 bytes. And there are also tools to perform file system maintenance, such as DF, which is called as disk free. This tool is used to know the availability of space on a disk, or how much space is utilized on a disk, that can be obtained by using this command df, that is disk free command. And other command, it is similar to your Unix fseek command. This fseek will help us to perform consistency check of the file system. These are the tools to perform file system maintenance that operate on file system at the block level. So every file that is stored in the terms of blocks on these HDFS file systems. But a block in HDFS is a much larger unit, which is of 64 MB by default. Normally, a disk block size is 512 bytes, but in HDFS, the block size by default is 64 MB. Like in a file system for a single disk, files in HDFS are broken into block-sized chunks, which are stored as independent units. Remember, the data set has to be divided into block-sized chunks, and they have to be distributed across the data nodes. And they are also stored as independent units. They don't have communication between each other. They don't communicate between each other. The data nodes, though they communicate by transferring the data, this blocks doesn't have any communication. They stay as independent units. Now, unlike a file system for a single disk, a file in HDFS that is smaller than a single block does not occupy a full block's worth of underlying storage. In normal file systems for a single disk, if a single block occupies a full block's storage. But in this HDFS, when a single block is lesser than that physical disk storage, it doesn't occupy the full block's worth. Means that remaining space on the disk is utilized for storing some other blocks. Now, what are the benefits of block abstraction for this distributed file system? All the data stored on these file systems are stored in the form of blocks. So what is the benefit of this? By providing this block abstraction, a file can't be larger than any single disk in the network, right? In this case, you have to see that the disk a file on a particular disk can't be larger than any single disk in normal cases. But because of this block abstraction, you can divide a file into blocks and distribute it onto multiple disks. You can take a single data set which has to be written onto the data nodes. You just divide them into chunks called as blocks, and you distribute across multiple disks. But in normal cases, we see that a file can't be larger than a single disk, because it has to be stored on a particular disk in order to accommodate that entire file. But because of this block abstraction, you can divide a large data set into multiple chunks and distribute it across various disks. So you can enable a file to have larger space which occupies than a single disk in the network. Now, another benefit is making the unit of abstraction a block rather than a file simplifies the storage subsystem. It is easy to store the file system on the clusters. Now, blocks fit well with replication for providing fault tolerance and availability. Because blocks can be replicated easily. You can duplicate the data and store it on multiple data nodes, and whenever there is a data loss or a system failure or a node failure, in such case you can easily retrieve the data from other copy on a healthy machine and bring back the replication factor back to 3. Normally, the default replication factor is 3 for any cluster. So if you want to store a block on a cluster, you have to store at least 3 copies, one in the one on the disk, one on a different disk on the same rack and one is on a different rack in the same cluster, right? So you try to make the replication factor for any block to be 3, and if at all node failure occurs or data loss occurs, in such case you can locate the duplicate copy of the block and put it onto a live node and bring back the replication factor back to 3. Okay. Now HDFS file seek command understands the blocks. Like in other cases, even HDFS also understands the blocks by using similar commands like fseek. For example, if you want to list the blocks that make up each file in the file system, in that case you can use this command. Remember, all the Hadoop command starts with a percentage symbol. Now use this percentage Hadoop fseek /files-blocks. This will list the blocks that make up each file in the file system. Now let us see what are name nodes and data nodes. A HDFS cluster has 2 types of nodes operating in a master worker pattern. Master worker pattern means it is like or you can consider it as a master slave pattern. In this case, name node acts as a master and all the data nodes acts as the workers. Means the name node stores the entire details about the file system and it delegates the work to the data nodes where the actual processing is done by the data nodes. So the name node manages the file system namespace stored persistently on the local disk in the form of 2 files, the namespace image and the edit log. These are the 2 important components of a name node. This name node actually stores where the blocks of the data set are distributed onto various data nodes. Because the data set is divided into blocks and it is distributed across data nodes, when some request arises to process that particular data, the name node should know onto which data nodes the data set is distributed in order to reconstruct the data set and then proceed for processing. That is why this name node contains the entire metadata about the blocks where the data set is actually stored on the data nodes. Okay, and this name node consists of 2 parts, the namespace image and the edit log. This edit log normally stores the updations temporarily so that if any system failure occurs before these updations, the data will not be permanently lost. And this namespace image contains the data of all the data nodes where the blocks of data belonging to a data set are stored. Now the name node also knows the data nodes on which all the blocks for a given file are located, as I said before. And client accesses the file system through an interface on behalf of the user by communicating with the name nodes and data nodes. This user code need not know about the name node and data node functionality because there is an interface which the client accesses the file system through this interface by communicating with this name nodes and data nodes. So there is an interface which acts intermediary between the user and the name nodes and the data nodes, which is taken care by the client to perform the communication. Now, what about data nodes? What is the task performed by data nodes? Data nodes are the workhorses of this file system. They store and retrieve blocks when they are told to, right? So when some analysis has to happen, when some processing of the data has to happen, in such case, these name nodes will delegate the work to the data nodes. So when these data nodes are asked by the clients or the name node in order to store or retrieve the blocks of data, then they perform such tasks and give back the data to the name node. Now, without the name node, the file system can't be used, right? Because the name node contains the entire details about where the blocks of data belonging to a data sets are distributed onto the data nodes. In order to reconstruct that entire data, when an analysis task has to be performed, in such case, this name node namespace will be useful. But if the machine running on the name node was obliterated, or if it is destroyed, then all the files on the file system would be lost, right? So if a name node failure occurs, then the entire data about the distribution of the blocks on the data nodes will be lost. So what is the alternative for this? How name node resilience to failure is achieved? How name node is removed as a single point of failure? Because name node stores the entire metadata. If it fails, the entire data will be lost. This is called a single point of failures. But how this name node resilience, how this name node intactness can be achieved so that it doesn't act as a single point of failure? Hadoop provides two mechanisms for this name node resilience to be achieved. That is, backup of the files can be taken and running a secondary name node. Now, where is this backup of the files taken? Whenever a data in the metadata, whenever a namespace has been updated in the name node, then immediately it takes a backup of this namespace on either a local disk, or it takes a backup on a remote NFS, that is network file system, right? So whenever a namespace has been updated with new blocks of data being stored on data nodes, immediately the data will be backed up on a local disk and also on a remote network file system. This helps to take that data in case of a node failure. And the second mechanism is run a secondary name node. This secondary name node is not having as much capacity as the primary name node, but it regularly merges this namespaces with the edit logs. You know that these two are the two components under a primary name node. Now, this secondary name node works actually to merge these namespaces and edit logs eventually, so that the edit log volume doesn't increase so much. But in some cases, when a name node failure, when a primary name node failure occurs, still the namespace is available with the secondary name node, and this namespace can be used to retrieve the data of the block distribution on the data nodes. But always there is a lag between the secondary name node and the primary name node. So there is certainly data loss that occurs when a system failure or a name node failure occurs. That is why there is an alternative provided, that is to read the backup file on the remote namespace, on the remote network file system that is available, which can be copied onto the secondary name node in case of primary name node failure. And this secondary name node can start working as primary name node until the primary name node is restored. I'm repeating again, when there is a primary name node failure, in such cases, the backup copy that is stored on a remote NFS can be copied to the secondary name node, and this secondary name node can be made to work as primary name node until the primary name node is restored back to its operation. And the next concept that that is added in this 2.x release of Hadoop is HDFS federation. How actually it is useful, what extra features it provides. The name node keeps, normally the name node keeps a reference to every file and block in the file system memory, right? And HDFS federation allows a cluster to scale by adding name nodes, each of which manages a portion of the file system namespace. Because this cluster store large amounts of data, and the data sets are divided into blocks and stored on multiple data nodes, name node will be overwhelmed with lots and lots of data when it is working with large number of clusters. Then in that case, single name node can't handle the entire task of storing the metadata of the entire cluster. In such cases, you can create HDFS federation, which allows a cluster to scale by adding name nodes, each of which manages a portion of the file system namespace. In this case, there are multiple name nodes, and each name node is responsible to handle the file system rooted under a particular root. Say, if you have a file system rooted under user, or if you have a file system rooted under say user 2, in that case you can quickly you can make this name node store all the files rooted under one particular root, and another name node to to store the file system rooted under a particular root, user 2 here in this case. Okay, so under federation, each name node manages a namespace volume which is made up of metadata for the namespace and a block pool which can be divided, containing all the blocks for the files in the namespace. Now, namespace volumes are independent of each other, and they don't communicate with each other. Though the name nodes communicate with each other, these namespace volumes doesn't communicate with each other, and they are independent of each other. Now, to access a federated HDFS cluster, clients use client-side mount tables to map file paths to name nodes. This is managed in configuration using view file system and view file system for 2 forward slashes by using uniform resource indicators. By using this command, we can manage the configuration. Now, in the next class, we are going to see other 2 HDFS concepts, that is HDFS high availability, failover and fencing, and also about the command line interface, how to interact with this HDFS clusters through command line interfaces and basic file system operations. Okay, any doubts so far? You can unmute yourself and discuss if you have any doubts.
No, ma'am.
No doubts. You just go through the PPT once again. I'll also give you the notes for this. I think you got this notes of module 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All of you complete.
Ma'am, not audible. One more time.
Did you complete assessment 1?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll shortly post assessment 2 and 3 also. Take up the assessment. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Shall we end the meeting then?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Tell me.
for the internals, first internals, how many modules, ma'am?
First internal, 2 modules.
2 modules. Okay, ma'am.
First and second modules. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Then see you in the next lecture.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you.